Hey everyone, Nashi here. So in this video I'm going to go over the skills and add-ons and which ones you should pick up. I'm going to kind of prioritize the ones that are important and highlight the ones that you don't need to worry about initially until later when you have plenty of extra skill points. I am going to leave little hyperlinks in the description that link to the skill calculator for skill point values that are really low leading up to higher skill point values, as well as meeting specific levels like 56 through 60. So check that out if you're still leveling up and still trying to get a lot of skill points, so that you know a general idea of what skill points to pick up for each level and each bracket of skill points, if you will. So let's jump right in. So first things first, to break this down as quickly as possible, we're going to go ahead and knock out the Awakening Tree. In the Awakening Tree, you'll see that I have everything learned. I recommend doing the same. For whatever level you're at, learn as many of the Awakening skills as you can, and then move on to your pre-Awaken kit. But the ones you can prioritize is pretty much everything except for Tenacious Edge. You could arguably even say Moonlight Dash isn't really a priority, because it's only useful for PvE. It does have some uses in PvP, but very, very, very minimal. 1v1 only, pretty much, and it's very risky to use even at that. Tenacious Edge is not really that useful in PvP, so you can actually get away with leaving this at level 1. Even in PvE, it's not really that useful, so if you're struggling with skill points, you can save some initially by not learning this all the way up to 4. You'll just want to at least get level 1 and leave it at that. Moving on, we'll go into the pre-awakened tree. So to condense this down and make this easier, you want to make sure that you get all your passives, and passives being Precise Martial Arts. This is very important. It gives you Ignore, Knockback, and Stiffness resistance, making your stiffnesses, which is our main form of catches, more effective and more likely to actually connect with our target. So very important that you get this. Must have. You have Sword Training. Max this out to the best that you can at whatever level you're at. Basically try to get it all the way up, because this is free melee AP. +1 per level, so it's very helpful for getting your damage up there earlier. Maneuver training, you could arguably not worry about initially if you're struggling with skill points. The melee evasion rates for more like high-end PvP doesn't really bother mobs in PvE that much. And in PvP, if you're not stacking evasion, it's not really going to have a significant impact. So it's 7% in total when you level it up all the way, so plus 7% melee evasion, and it's only melee evasion, so it's not really super necessary initially. I would recommend, however, picking it up when you have the spare skill points and just getting it knocked out and finished. Next ones would be Infinite Mastery. Max this out as soon as you can. I believe 55 is the final level that you can get the last one, so get it. You get 100 HP per level, and then 200 HP on the final level, plus 2% accuracy. The accuracy is pretty important, so definitely get that. Then you have Skilled Hunter. I believe this starts at level 56. So get this as soon as you can, and then max it out as soon as you can. That's just free monster damage. It's +3 monster AP, so it's good. It's helpful in PvE. It doesn't affect PvP, so if you're concerned about PvP only, then you don't really need to worry about it. However, if you want to farm skill points faster besides doing the books, you want to kill mobs, a large amount of mobs, so this would help you do that. So I would recommend picking this up as soon as you can. And then that'll wrap up the passes. We'll go ahead and get into the actual skills that I recommend for PvP. And I'll make note if there's any sort of PvE oriented ones. So first things first, Slice. You don't need Deep Slice, don't ever worry about it. You can get Absolute Slice, but it's not necessary. So you could maybe save some skill points there at first, but never get Deep Slice. It's not really useful for Mewa. Retaliation, you can leave it as is. You don't have to worry about leveling it up. I will eventually be leveling this up to Absolute, but not getting Decapitation, as I don't think Decapitation is very useful in this current meta. But Absolute Retaliation can do some decent damage. We do get Retaliations off, so it can help and just do a little bit of chip damage. But like I said, it's like not really a big deal at all. Leaving it as base is plenty fine. Divider, I would leave it at level 1. Don't worry about this skill. Matter of fact, you could probably just lock it if you feel like it. If you want to do a chase cancel, which I show in my combo video, you can do that by leaving Divider unlocked. So that's in Tiger Blade, actually. I mean, but I would lock it otherwise and not even worry about the skill unless you plan on using it for Tiger Blade chase cancel. So next we got Backstep Slash. So this is not a priority skill. It is, however, more of a niche skill, and it has some nifty features in terms of allowing you to pull off down smashes as well as slowing your target. It does do a stiff, so it does have some CC applications to it, but the main reasons why you try to use it is for the slow and the down smash potential. The down smash, not so much. The slow is more of the niche thing that I was referring to. So it's not an absolute necessity to pick this up. However, I do demonstrate some slow stacking when using this. So if you want to do that, pick it up. Otherwise, you don't have to. So you could save some skill points there. Blind Thrust. Blind Thrust 3 is required if you want to have one of your Reband skills that I'm going to recommend. So you need to have Blind Thrust 3 at the minimum. I would recommend picking that up anyways, as it's good for both PvP as well as PvE. There are some little tricks you can do, but basically it's for the Reband. Absolute isn't necessary, but if you have the spare skill points, I would pick it up if you can. Nemesis Slash, I would at least get Ultimate Nemesis Slash. This will help you out with healing in PvE. If you get the Absolute, that'll do a little bit more healing, so that's pretty nice. It's not really a PvP skill, however you can use it in PvP, but it's mostly for PvE usage, for grinding and getting higher levels and more skill points, so maybe consider getting that if you are struggling with healing. Mewa's Will. This is a must. You must get as high as you can, Absolute, if you can get it. It's just really useful WP, especially when you're leveling up. You'll have a lot of struggle with keeping your WP really high, so Mewa's will help out when those times when you can't pot or you just are struggling in between combat and need more WP quickly. So I would pick that up. It also helps out with your Reband skill, having at least minimum level 3. So that will allow you to pick up the Ultimate Mewa's Will, which is what I recommend. But I'll go over that in a few moments. Ultimate Blind Slash, or Blind Slash in general, you don't need. This is a niche skill that I use for an extra float. It is not a necessity to have it. I use it whenever I don't have Red Moon available and I need a float option. So it's not needed. You could save some skill points with this. But it is a float on good hit if you use it. It is unprotected though, so. Moving on, we have Chase. Max it out to Ultimate Chase. In my cancels that I demonstrate for Chase Cancel, you want to have Ultimate Chase. If you have just Chase 1 and Chase 2, the cancel that I demonstrate will not work. There is, however, other cancels that will work with Chase 2 and Chase 1. I just don't use those particular ones. I just use the Ultimate Chase. So pick that up as soon as you can. It would be a required. Whirlwind Cuts, wouldn't worry about it. Lock it. You don't need to lock it, but you can lock it if you want to. You never really use the skill at all. This goes for the flows for it as well, and the passive additions to it. We don't really use it. Kicks we don't use. I lock them. They're not really useful for Mewa comboing at all, so I wouldn't bother with them. Carver, I'm currently working towards getting it absolute, but you don't need to have this skill. I'm using it for some niche stuff, so if you want to do some CC floating in Tiger Blade, you can, but you have to have level 2 Carver. So that's an option for you if you want, but otherwise I would lock it. I wouldn't recommend using this unless you know what you're doing. Decapitation, lock it. Don't even think about it. Skill's garbage. Don't worry about it. It doesn't exist on our tree. Dragon Bite, I would max this out as soon as you can, all the way to absolute. This is your main form of catching in PvP that I will be demonstrating in the engage section of the combo guide. But this is important anyways for your add-ons, as well as it's good in PvE as well. So when moving on to Dragon Claw, I would pick up Dragon Claw and Lunar Slash when you got these spare skill points, but they are really useful in PvE. They do have some application in PvP, but it's not as big a deal to use in PvP, so that's why they're not really required. But pick them up if you can. They're really good and they'll help you level up faster or get more skill points faster. Next we'll go and go over blooming. Pick up minimum just normal blooming. This is so that you can use a rebam skill. Otherwise, I would recommend that you get absolute blooming as soon as possible. This is good for PvE and PvP. PvE more, but for PvP you can use it for like a finisher, which I go over in some of the combos that I do. But you can use it as a catch, as a counter CC basically, but it's pretty risky because it's not protected and it has a really long animation, so just be wary of that. But at minimum, like I said, get the blooming so you can get a rebam skill. For Red Moon, you want to get Absolute Red Moon as soon as possible. That is, however, only available at level 60, so at minimum, get level 3. If you have the spare skill points, get Ultimate Chaos Red Moon, which applies a little bit of a slow debuff when you hit with Red Moon. And then also Maewa Ascension to Heaven. This is good for PvE and has some application in PvP, so it's not terrible. So I would recommend getting these, just not a requirement. Cyclone Slash. This is a niche skill. It's pretty useful. I would recommend getting at least level 1, as the things you do with level 1 and Absolute are basically the same. The only difference is damage and accuracy and stuff like that, but overall they do the same thing, so you don't need to get Absolute, but I would recommend it eventually. It's just not required at all. So then we come down to the arrows. I would recommend getting at minimum Stub Arrow 1, Stub Arrow 2, and then Absolute. You do not want to get double or triple shot, and this is just my opinion, because mostly I'm going to show you and demonstrate to you how to use Stub Arrow as a counter measure, as a counter CC, rather than a long range CC option. So I don't use double and triple for that reason, because of my particular playstyle, but that's just me. It's up to you. You'll save some significant skill points that way, so that's like 36 skill points that I'm saving by not getting those, so it's pretty helpful. When it comes to the other arrow skills, Grep Arrow is not needed at all. This is a niche skill. You do not need that. Evasive Shot is a niche skill as well. You do not need that. And Charged Stub Arrow you technically don't need either. There is some utility factor when you get to Charged Stub Arrow Evasion, which gives you a little bit of an iframe. So it's one of our few iframes that we have in our kit right now, so it's pretty useful in my opinion. It is, however, not recommended. I went ahead and went all the way to Absolute Charged Stub Arrow because I have the spare skill points. You do not. You can actually sit at Evasion and that's it. And that's my recommendation on those. And then when it gets to the rebam skills, Ultimate Maewa's Will is the one I recommend you picking up. This is a very nice quick heal every 20 seconds, as well as buffing your combo damage by 30% crit for 10 seconds. and then gives you a little bit of a magic DP buff for 10 seconds as well. And in PvE, it pulls targets in and spins them away from you, so you can do back attack damage, and they're all grouped up if they can be CC'd in that manner. So it's pretty good. It's useful in a lot of regards. Crimson Gust, which is the alternative option, is not very good, so I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty depressing, actually, in its current state. And then the second Rebam, which is your level 57 one, is Blooming Step. I recommend Blooming Step because it has more utility factor for a player with lower AP. Strike can do a lot of damage if you have the AP to back it up, but Blooming Step is better overall for PvE and PvE, or PvP as well as PvE, because it applies a DP shred and it allows you to have a utility movement option that doesn't drain stamina and allows you to regenerate stamina while you're in the air. So it's pretty useful in that regard. So I'd recommend picking this one up. Like I said, Stride is good too. It just has a lot shorter range and does pretty decent down attack damage to players on PvP, and it does pretty decent PvE damage to mobs. So either one doesn't matter. I just like Step better for what it can do. And then last but not least, locking skills. I would recommend locking forward roll. You don't want to do that accidentally mid combo. That would be embarrassing. Lock upper kick, lock divider unless you plan on using it for Tiger Blade chase cancel, lock carver unless you're comfortable without locking it, lock Mewa decapitation because it's garbage, lock absolute cyclone slash or any of the cyclone slashes because it's a hotbar skill anyways. You don't want to accidentally do it after doing a red moon. So that's the reason why I recommend locking it. But if you have it locked and use it from the hotbar, it works just fine. So you don't have to worry about it. And lock rage transfer because when you're doing your Rebam skills, I believe it's this one. When you're doing your Rebam skill, if you do, yeah, it's because this is Shift X and this is X. If you do the keybinds improperly, you might accidentally try to rage transfer and that'll get you killed. So just be careful of that. And that's it for the skills. Like I said, in the description I'm going to put links to the Codex skill calculator for the different levels and the different skill point brackets, so you can get a better representation if you're still leveling up and still building up your skill points. So let's go ahead and go to the add-ons. So for my add-ons, for my PvP add-ons, I do Stub Arrow 1, because it only lets you choose Stub Arrow from Stub Arrow 1. This, when I land a Stub Arrow attack, I'll get 4% accuracy, and then I will, and that's for 12 seconds, so that's a decent amount of time, and that applies every time you land a Stub Arrow, so it's pretty nice. The movement speed debuff 4% for 7 seconds on the target, so that helps slow them down just a little bit. Since we're a mobile class, it helps if you can outposition them, so that would be the reason for the movement speed debuff. With Dragon Bite, I do crit plus 20% for 9 seconds, and attack speed plus 7% for 5 seconds to self. So these are to buff me up. Like if I catch someone with a Dragon Bite CC, I can then follow up with Red Moon. That'll make Red Moon really strong when doing that. So another 20% on top of Red Moon would be pretty nice for the damage output that it could do. And then you have Red Moon add-ons, which is the PvP attack 15 and attack speed plus 10% for 5 seconds. These will not overlap, but the Red Moon is stronger, so it'll reset the attack speed buff, and you'll actually get the 10% value instead of the 7% at that point. So that'll be better anyways. Plus, not all the time do I do Red Moon right after doing a D-Bite. Sometimes I do Red Moon by itself. Sometimes I do Red Moon after catching with Stigma or Oppression or some other options. But so you always want to try to get as much AP and attack speed as humanly possible. So Then we'll get into the Awakening weapon add-ons. For me, Moonrise, I do PvP attack plus 10, critical hit plus 20% for 9 seconds. This to make sure that the main portion of my combo damage is going to be beefed up as much as possible. And you pretty much almost always start your combo by doing like some sort of stiff into a float into Moonrise or stiff into Moonrise. So the main part of your combo is going to be associated with Moonrise and Cloud Stab usually. So beefing up Moonrise and then those buffs lasting all the way through the rest of your combo, being Cloud Stab for example, makes it for a lot more damage. And then you have Pedal Drill. Pedal Drill is one of your main engages in terms of chip damage, as it doesn't CC anymore. It used to, back before they did the CC changes. Feels bad, man. But since it's one of our main engage skills, we want to be a little bit tougher because sometimes we'll take a lot of chip damage in the process. So I do all defense plus 20 for 10 seconds and attack speed plus 7% for 5 seconds. This is so that when I land and hit my target, I get a little bit of attack speed buff so that I can get the fuck out, or I can continue comboing. And that 5 seconds will last the entirety of a combo as well, so if I didn't get other attack speed buffs to replace it, this would actually do just fine if I landed with that. And then this is a controversial one. You don't need to do this one, but I do it because of the 1v1 application as well as a little bit of 1vx application it has. This is December, attack speed plus 5% for 12 or all accuracy plus 5% for 12 seconds. So when I engage with this Pedal Drill and I do a quick little chip damage with December, which is the flow to Pedal Drill, I'll get a little bit of extra accuracy bonus for a decent amount of time as well. And then I will apply a movement speed 10% debuff to my target, slowing them down further. Pedal Drill by itself does 30%, and then when the add-on from December will stack with it, so it'll be 40% movement slow on your target. So that's pretty nice. It helps out with positioning and out-positioning your targets. So that's why I use that. And then you can also potentially use Stigma as an alternative option. Stigma being plus 30% crit damage, and then you can either do the Pain, which I don't really recommend the Pain. The Pain doesn't really do that much nowadays. But you could do the 5% Evasion as an alternative, and if you stack Evasion, that actually can be pretty useful. But it's basically, for a lack of a better option, you would do Pain or Evasion. And so, yeah. That's the PvP add-ons that I use and the ones I recommend. And that'll go ahead and wrap up this section. There's going to be another video, like I said, that'll go over the PvP combo, so make sure to check that out.